Twitter-like interface. And so what students can actually do is go onto this app and access virtual field trips, demonstrations, performances, and even teachers can help their students with homework over these phones. So if a student is struggling, they can probably get on the phone camera and link up and look at their teacher and get help that way. Taking a step back, why the whole BYOD movement? Why bring your own device? Well, the Horizon report says that using personal devices for students creates a setting that is student-centered. So we're looking at student-centered learning. And some large schools have actually lifted their cell phone bans. I think a school in New York, a large system up there, and a large system in Texas actually lifted their cell phone bans to take this student-centered approach, allowing smartphones to be used in the classroom. And the report also shows that more project-based learning can occur through a cell phone, and also personal discovery. So if you have a project, you can put students together in groups and they can connect with one another over their phones, discuss information, and all around it just creates a more coherent and consistent environment, because they're able to talk to one another and ask the instructor questions in a much faster fashion even than email, and even definitely not having it. You had to wait. If a student had a question, they're trying to work on a project, they just have to wait until the next day to ask their instructor in school. Now it's all instant. So overall, using personal devices, adopting this BYOD policy allows a school to test it first. So they can test how the devices facilitate learning before a school makes a large technology investment. So bringing the BYOD policy in will allow them to see how technology actually facilitates learning. And if they like it, then maybe they can actually purchase some equipment or they can purchase equipment so that students who maybe do not have their own devices can use a school device and not feel out of the loop. And that brings me to what some of the limitations to the BYOD policy can be. And of course, if a student does not have their own device, then a school is going to have to provide them with one. And that would kind of be embarrassing to the student, but it happens. I mean, there are students who are not as fortunate, and their families are not as fortunate as some others, and they still to this day cannot afford a cell phone. So, it is tempting also to be in class, and if you're allowed the freedom to have your phone, it's going to be tempting if you're in middle school, high school, to want to text someone, to want to Snapchat someone, to look at Twitter, whatever. And it's probably not what they're supposed to be doing in class, let's face it. So we definitely want to look at how we can control this. How do we keep them off of Snapchat? And because cell phones are still viewed by some teachers as a distraction. Personally, if I have my cell phone out in class, it just doesn't help me, because I am a busy person and people are always emailing me, texting me, whatever, and it's just a bother. Now, maybe to high school students, they're not really bothered by that. Maybe they're not getting all of that information, so maybe it will really help them learn. Me personally, I wouldn't want to do it, just because I'd be worried about work. I'd be worried about what my family needs, whatever. And having my phone out in class is a huge distraction. But how do we change that perception among people in our generation and the teachers who are teaching, who see phones as a distraction? That's a good question. How do we change that perception to allow students to use their phones? And I think one of the things would be is control. If teachers have control over what students are doing on their phones, that would definitely change the perception of using technology in the classroom, specifically personal technology. So taking all the limitations into consideration for the BYOD policy, it's a great thing. It brings a cost-effective mobile learning strategy into schools. So it is cost-effective for schools. It's going to benefit the students. So essentially, it is a win-win. And since if students are always on their phones, we might as well try to do something to make their learning environment constructive. And if they're going to be on their phones, let's have them learn. Let's have them do things for class and just tie everything together. And I think the BYOD policy would be a great way for students to learn.
Created using PowToon.